Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm doing a rapid-fire review of the Battle of the Divas from Salt and Pepper Games. Rapid-fire reviews are a format on the channel where I try to cover the game, cover loosely how the game plays, just general notes, and then dive into my thoughts and opinions, all in 10 minutes or less. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. Before diving into this one, I should note, this is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. The general idea of the Battle of the Divas is this is a lane battling tug-of-war kind of experience in which you take control of one of these two historic divas. You're going to be playing cards to the two sides of these various operas. In order to score these operas, these are going to be the specific pieces that are being played at these operas, and you're going to be playing until 5 operas have been scored, at which point you'll move to endgame scoring. The main idea of the game is you're trying to juggle what you're doing with all your cards. Each player has their own different deck, as you can see over here, and you're trying to play cards every single turn in order to play them to a specific opera to resolve a variety of effects, we'll go through them shortly, and then try to balance all of the things the cards do, as well as which cards you want to place into your timeline because of the effects and scoring that will happen there. The general turn sequence is you choose a card from your hand and you play it into an opera. So for example, if I went ahead and played this card actually would not be a great fit over here. This card would be a better fit over here. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the bottom of the card, and if you have matching notes to the specific opera, then you're going to move forward on this track. There's a variety of ways you move forward on this track. We'll be covering a few of them. There's some of the intricacies of everything you're doing over here, but you're going to start by, if you have a matching note, you can move forward on this track. You'll also, at points, be able to gather notes, moving them from this board over to over here, at which point you'll also move up in the track. And the last way is when you have these over here. Let's see if I have a matching card in my hand. I don't, unfortunately. But if we place this one over here, for example, we have a matching note from that, and we also have a mask. There are a few masks, and each mask, each different colored mask, allows you to move forward on the scoring track as well. Effectively, what you're doing is this tug-of-war, this lane battling aspect, where you're going to be moving your token forward when it matches these criteria over here. That's all covered on your player aid as in the opera scoring section. So you're trying to be mindful of what's on the bottom of the cards. I should also note, I kind of get ahead of myself over here, these cards also have to actually match the specific theater. So you can see each theater has a preferred instrument, and you have to match that in order to play the card there in the first place. So that's going to be another challenge over here. As you can see over here, these aren't going to help me out right now. So you're trying to juggle where you can play cards. So for example, this one can go over here, moving this forward over here. So you're trying to get that forward. The first matching note moves it forward 1 space. The second matching note moves it forward 2 spaces. So you are trying to juggle where you can actually play and resolve those cards. Once you're done with that, you're going to look over here to this board, and you're going to be moving your diva as many spaces as the note you played. Over here, I played 4 notes, so I can move up to 4 on this board. If you land in the opposing diva, you move 1 further, so you're never going to share the same space. Once you're done moving, you're going to look at wherever your diva is, and you're going to compare the actions on that key. If you're between 2 spots, you can choose one of the 2 keys and perform those actions. That's going to give you 4 core actions you can do based on where your diva lands. So again, you're already trying to juggle different things. Where can I play a card? Where will it help me advance in terms of scoring, in terms of getting more points on that opera? And then where am I going to be going on this board, and which actions can I take? These actions are going to allow you to move the marker on an opera when you have the star. Alternatively, to advance your note over here, you're going to pick one of your 2 vocal range markers, moving it and expanding your vocal range, allowing you to sing more notes. Each of the divas have their own vocal range. So you're going to be utilizing this in order to expand your vocal range, giving you more flexibility on the notes you can sing. These actions correspond to the specific opera, so you can see these specific indicators, for example, that one, and those allow you to either move musical notes over to that opera, trying to match the specific musical notes of that performance in order to score more points and get more applause over here. And the last card is this one over here. The symbol lets you play cards into your timeline. That's where you're going to have, again, those dual use cards where everything's going on, playing cards into a shared timeline where they're going to score for, alternatively, the year of the card in some cases. Alternatively, if they're a friend, they just want to be next to your card. There's some timeline scoring. I don't want to heavily go into this. This is supposed to be a rapid fire review. But the basic idea of a turn is just to kind of give you a quick recap, is you play a card to a specific opera where you can play it, as well as what you're trying to achieve with that card. You move your diva on the board, placing out a musical note or flipping your opponent's musical note. You take the actions of that spot, and then you're trying to get to a point where you can score the performances. Speaking of which, that opera symbol over here, so when you see this symbol over here, you can either move a musical note to that opera in order to enhance your applause, or alternatively, Alternatively, you can score the opera, which is usually what you're going to be doing if you think you are ahead enough and if you have the minimum scoring potential. Each opera piece has a minimum scoring potential, and you're trying to resolve that. When you do that, you're going to get the instrument marker of that specific board, being able to place it into the orchestra and get the associated action reward of that spot as well. And that's going to be where you're tracking points as well, both in-game and end-game points. So play a card, move on the piano, perform the actions where your diva is on one of those keys, and then finally draw your hand back up to 4 cards. Do that until you score 5 operas, and that is how you play the Battle of the Divas. A little more in-depth than I planned for the rapid-fire review format, but it is what it is. Let's see how fast we can go through the rest of this anyway. With that said, for the rest of the review over here, let's start with the general aspect of, am I keeping this game? I think not, but it's a little more complicated than that. Why or why not? Well, I don't think I'm keeping this one primarily because 2-player lane battling tug-of-war games, there's so many of them that do this really, really well. And the main complaint I have against this one is I'm really just not pulled in by the theme, combined with the fact that the replayability isn't as necessarily high as I would want it to be. Like, the action of the cards don't heavily shift of the game, which means you're kind of going through the same back and forth experience every time you play this. There's going to be things that mix it up, reacting to the other players. You're going to have obviously where the various operas come out, and yes, the action of the cards will give you some different variability to the experience, but I think the timeline aspect for me wasn't necessarily as big of a component of the game that it majorly shifts that up. So combine a lack of really being pulled in by the theme, combined with some concerns about replayability, and that's the only thing that really holds this back as another excellent lane battling tug-of-war kind of game. Speaking of which, before we dive into all the reasons this might be a game for you, let's talk about those recommendations. Other similar games that might be of interest to you, like the kinds of games that are making me less sure I want to keep this one, 2 offhand are going to be Watergate. Watergate is one of my favorite 2-player lane battling tug-of-war, not really lane battling, sort of. You can make an argument that anything's a lane battler to an extent, but a strong tug-of-war experience that I think is absolutely fantastic. And this also reminded me of Caper. Caper, specifically Caper Europe, I think is the better game in from those two, Caper and Caper Europe, but Caper Europe is a fantastic tug-of-war game with, to me, a slightly more interesting mechanism around the various characters and equipment in that game. As far as a counter opinion, why might this game be for you? Frankly, it does everything right. There's a lot to like about this game. It's a tight game as far as the actions you're taking. Every single card you take has to be mindful of as to where can you play it and what are you trying to do. There's going to be trade-offs all the time. Which is the most important battle that you're trying to fight? Do you have those cards at any given time? Is it more important that you take the right actions on the keys over here? Alternatively, do you want that card to go into the timeline? Because there's a whole timeline aspect. You didn't really even get into it very heavily, but there's a whole timeline aspect as far as the ordering of the timeline, the abilities in the timeline, how cards score points. So you're really trying to think through every single decision as far as those cards in your hand, trying to figure out which card is going to do the job at any given point while trying to multitask all the various benefits. Everything you do is going to be mindful of the applause you get, which actions can you take, how you try to get what you need while getting in the way of your opponent or making your opponent chase you. There's really a lot to consider in this game, and also thematically, especially if you do like this theme. I'm not pulled in by it, but especially if you do like this theme, they did a great job with the implementation of this theme, which is, I mean, Salt and Pepper games in general, they do a great job with a lot of solo games and 2-player games in particular. Those are the areas they shine in, and this is another one in that, what were they called? They have a term, battles without, they have a term for this series of game, basically fighting without weapons, something like that, but I don't remember their term is far more elegant. But overall, this does a good job of giving you a lot of different things to manage, all with those multi-use cards, and trying to figure out how you're going to achieve your goals while balancing it all. So if you like 2-player lane battling experiences, especially on top of the theme, there's a lot of reasons that this game might well be right for you. As far as final thoughts on this one, final thoughts wise, I am coming in at a 3.5 out of 5. I did debate whether it gets a 4. Like, it's a really well done game. Like, all the things you're managing, I didn't really heavily focus on it, but even like expanding your vocal range buys you a lot of flexibility. But you have to make those decisions as to how long are you investing, the timing of the game, it doesn't really overstay its welcome. There's a lot of things that really work well in this game. For me, ultimately, I think the fact that the variability of the experience isn't as much as where I'd want it, combined with not being pulled in by the theme. Rating-wise, I end up at a 3.5 out of 5. I do think mechanically it almost does deserve that 4. It is really well balanced, but that's where I am on the Battle of the Divas. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.